Hello, future medical professionals. Welcome to an exciting journey into the human body. Today, we are diving into Class 11 Biology, Chapter Excretory Products and their elimination, and focusing specifically on the disorders that can affect this vital system. From basic understanding to competitive exam insights, we'll cover it all across 4 levels: easy, medium, hard, and hardest. Let's uncover the secrets of a healthy excretory system and what happens when things go wrong. Ready to start simple? In our easy level, we'll define some common kidney problems and understand their basic impact. Our excretory system works tirelessly to keep us healthy, but sometimes it faces challenges. First up is uremia, a serious condition where toxic waste products, like urea, build up in your blood because your kidneys aren't filtering them out properly. Imagine your body's waste bin overflowing. This accumulation can make you feel very sick. Next, we have renal calculi, or kidney stones. These are like tiny, hard pebbles made of minerals and salts that form inside your kidneys. They can be incredibly painful if they block the urinary tract, preventing urine from flowing freely. Think of a clog in a pipe. Then there's glomerulonephritis. This is when the tiny filters in your kidneys, called glomeruli, become inflamed. These filters are crucial for cleaning your blood, so when they swell up, they can't do their job effectively. This can lead to important substances like protein and red blood cells leaking into your urine. Finally, when kidneys fail, we rely on dialysis. This is a life-saving medical procedure that acts as an artificial kidney, helping to remove waste and excess fluid from your blood when your own kidneys can't. Let's test your understanding with a few practice questions. Question 1. What is the primary waste product that accumulates in the blood during uremia? Question 2. What are renal calculi commonly known as? And question 3. Which part of the kidney is inflamed in glomerulonephritis? Take a moment to think about these. The answers will solidify your basic understanding of these common disorders. Now, let's elevate our knowledge. In the medium level, we'll delve deeper into the causes, symptoms, and initial treatments for kidney disorders. We begin by linking uremia more closely to renal failure. Uremia is essentially the toxic state that occurs when kidney function declines. If left untreated, it inevitably progresses to renal failure, where the kidneys completely lose their ability to filter waste. This can be acute, meaning sudden, or chronic, meaning it develops slowly over time. The symptoms are varied, including fatigue, swelling, and even confusion, highlighting how crucial healthy kidneys are for overall well-being. Understanding these signs is key to early intervention. Moving to renal calculi, or kidney stones, we'll explore how they form. They typically occur when urine becomes too concentrated, allowing minerals to crystallize and clump together. Dehydration and certain diets are major risk factors. We also identify different types, with calcium oxalate stones being the most common. The pain associated with kidney stones, known as renal colic, is often severe and can be accompanied by blood in the urine. For glomerulonephritis, we differentiate between acute forms, often triggered by infections, and chronic forms, which develop gradually and can lead to irreversible damage. Both types impair kidney function, leading to symptoms like swelling and high blood pressure. When kidneys fail, dialysis becomes a lifeline. Hemodialysis, often called an artificial kidney, works by drawing blood from the patient, passing it through a special filter called a dialyzer, which uses a semi-permeable membrane. Waste products diffuse from the blood into a clean dialysis fluid, while essential substances remain in the blood. This process typically takes a few hours, several times a week. Ultimately, for irreversible kidney failure, a kidney transplantation offers the best long-term solution. This involves surgically placing a healthy donor kidney into the recipient, though it requires lifelong medication to prevent the body from rejecting the new organ. Time for some more practice questions. Question 1. What is the main difference between acute and chronic renal failure? Question 2. Name 2 common types of kidney stones. Question 3. How does hemodialysis remove waste from the blood? Question 4. What is a major challenge associated with kidney transplantation? And question 5. List 2 common symptoms of uremia or renal failure. Think carefully about the explanations we just covered to ace these. Alright, let's step up the challenge. The hard level will involve deeper analysis, theory connections, and more complex aspects of excretory disorders. At this level, we dive into the pathophysiology of glomerulonephritis, understanding the intricate mechanisms behind kidney filter damage. Many forms involve immune complex deposition, where antigen-antibody complexes get stuck in the glomeruli, triggering inflammation and cellular proliferation. We'll differentiate between specific types like post-streptococcal GN, IgA nephropathy, and rapidly progressive GN, each with its unique immune pathway leading to kidney damage. Understanding these immune-mediated processes is crucial for targeted treatment strategies. We also distinguish between acute and chronic renal failure. Acute failure is sudden and often reversible, usually due to factors like severe dehydration or certain toxins. Chronic failure, however, is a progressive, irreversible decline over time, commonly caused by conditions like diabetes or long-standing hypertension. Recognizing the specific causes for each is vital for diagnosis and management. Let's compare the 2 primary dialysis modalities, hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis. Hemodialysis involves external blood filtration using an artificial kidney, requiring vascular access and usually performed in a clinic. It's highly efficient but demands strict dietary control. Peritoneal dialysis, on the other hand, uses the patient's own peritoneal membrane as a natural filter, with dialysate introduced into the abdominal cavity. This allows for home treatment and more flexibility, but carries a higher risk of peritonitis, an infection of the peritoneal lining. Each method has distinct advantages and disadvantages depending on the patient's lifestyle and medical condition. Finally, we examine the crucial role of antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, in maintaining water balance. ADH increases water reabsorption in the kidneys, leading to concentrated urine. A deficiency in ADH, or the kidney's inability to respond to it, causes diabetes insipidus, a condition marked by excessive urination and thirst, leading to dehydration. Connecting theory to practice, understanding the role of ADH in conditions like diabetes insipidus highlights how hormonal imbalances directly impact excretory function. In central D, the problem lies with ADH production or release, while in nephrogenic D, the kidneys simply don't respond to ADH. Both scenarios result in the body losing too much water, leading to severe dehydration and electrolyte disturbances. This illustrates the delicate interplay between the endocrine and excretory systems. Grasping these deeper physiological connections is essential for a holistic understanding of kidney disorders and their systemic effects. It also prepares you for complex clinical scenarios you might encounter in your medical career. Let's tackle some harder questions now. Question 1. Explain the primary immunological mechanism behind post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Question 2. Differentiate between the causes of prerenal and intrarenal acute kidney injury. Question 3. What is the main principle that allows for waste removal in both hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis? Question 4. Name one advantage and one disadvantage of peritoneal dialysis compared to hemodialysis. Question 5. How does a deficiency in ADH lead to diabetes insipidus? Question 6. What is the key difference in kidneys' response to ADH in central versus nephrogenic diabetes insipidus? And question 7. Why is lifelong immunosuppression necessary after a kidney transplant? Take your time, these require analytical thinking. Are you ready for the ultimate challenge? The hardest level will push your boundaries with competitive depth, engineering insights, and the most advanced concepts in renal pathophysiology and treatment. We begin with the genetic underpinnings of kidney disorders, focusing on polycystic kidney disease, or PKD. This inherited condition involves the development of numerous fluid-filled cysts in the kidneys, progressively impairing their function. We'll differentiate between autosomal dominant PKD, which typically manifests in adulthood, and the rarer, more severe autosomal recessive PKD, affecting children. Understanding the specific gene mutations, like *PKD1* and *PKD2*, is crucial for genetic counseling and potential future gene therapies. We also touch upon Alport syndrome, another genetic disorder affecting the glomerular basement membrane, leading to kidney disease, hearing loss, and eye problems. These insights highlight the role of genetics in complex renal pathologies. Next, we delve into the intricate immunological mechanisms driving glomerulonephritis. We'll explore type 2 hypersensitivity reactions, exemplified by anti-GBM disease, where antibodies directly attack the glomerular basement membrane. Then, type 3 hypersensitivity, the most common type, where circulating antigen-antibody complexes deposit in the glomeruli, as seen in lupus nephritis or IgA nephropathy, initiating an inflammatory cascade. We also consider post-immune glomerulonephritis, often linked to ANCA-associated vasculitis, where immune deposits are minimal. Understanding these specific immune pathways is vital for precise diagnosis and the application of targeted immunosuppressive therapies. This detailed immunological perspective is critical for advanced medical understanding. From biology to engineering, let's explore the sophisticated design of dialysis machines. Modern dialyzers employ hollow fiber membranes made of synthetic polymers, engineered for optimal permeability, allowing small waste molecules to pass while retaining essential proteins and cells. The countercurrent flow principle, where blood and dialysate flow in opposite directions, maximizes the efficiency of waste removal by maintaining a steep concentration gradient. Precision control of ultrafiltration, through transmembrane pressure, ensures accurate fluid removal, preventing dehydration or fluid overload. Crucially, all materials used must be highly biocompatible to prevent adverse immune reactions or blood clotting, a testament to the interdisciplinary nature of medical technology. This blend of biology and engineering is what makes dialysis a life-saving therapy. Finally, we tackle renal transplant immunology and the complexities of end-stage renal disease management. Histocompatibility matching, particularly for human leukocyte antigens, is paramount to minimize immune rejection. Lifelong immunosuppressive therapy is essential to prevent hyperacute, acute, and chronic rejection, each mediated by different immune mechanisms. We also consider the multisystemic impact of ESRD, leading to complications like anemia, bone disease, and cardiovascular problems, which are often the leading cause of death. For patients not suitable for transplant or dialysis, palliative care becomes crucial. Future directions, including xenotransplantation and bioartificial kidneys, offer exciting prospects for revolutionizing renal replacement therapy, showcasing the dynamic frontier of medical science. Now, for the ultimate test of your knowledge, here are the first 5 questions for the hardest level. Question 1. Describe the genetic basis and clinical manifestations of both ATPT and ARPT. Question 2. Explain the difference between type 2 and type 3 hypersensitivity reactions in the context of glomerulonephritis, providing an example for each. Question 3. How does the countercurrent flow principle enhance the efficiency of solute removal in a dialyzer? Question 4. Discuss the importance of biocompatibility in dialysis equipment. Question 5. Differentiate between hyperacute, acute, and chronic rejection in renal transplantation, outlining their respective immune mechanisms. Take your time to formulate comprehensive answers. Continuing with the hardest level questions, here are the next 5. Question 6. What are ANCA-associated vasculitides and how do they relate to possiimmune glomerulonephritis? Question 7. Explain the multisystemic impact of end-stage renal disease, ESRD, beyond just kidney failure. Question 8. What are the primary classes of immunosuppressive drugs used in renal transplantation, and what is their general mechanism of action? Question 9. Discuss the challenges and potential future advancements in renal replacement therapy, such as xenotransplantation. And question 10. How does Alport syndrome mechanistically lead to kidney disease, hearing loss, and ocular abnormalities? These questions require a deep, integrated understanding of the topic. Congratulations on completing this in-depth journey through the disorders of the excretory system. We've covered everything from basic definitions to advanced competitive concepts, preparing you thoroughly for your NEET exams and beyond. If you found this content valuable and want to explore more such comprehensive educational resources, visit synapse.omaps.in. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more engaging and high-quality learning experiences. Keep learning, keep growing, and excel in your medical aspirations.